Can everybody see this? Is it too small, too big? I know the legible writing is not exactly. 1 second. Okay. Let us talk about what's happening here on screen. Okay. We see two objects on screen, correct? Yes? We see object A, assume this is our view controller. We see object B, which is our view. Everybody? I have two objects. I have my images view controller, and I have my image cell view. Everybody? Okay. My image cell needs to tell or needs to notify whoever is listening, object A in that instance, hey, I long pressed on something. I long pressed on something. So I want to create a custom delegation. I want to create a custom delegate. I want to create a custom delegate so that anybody who says they want to conform to that delegate gets notifications when somebody long presses on my cell. Everybody? Very similar to my table view. My table view has a delegate on it. It has methods similar to cell for row add, number of items, did select on my delegate. My data source has the cell for row and number of rows. On my image cell, I want to have one function, for example, that says long press activated or something, right? Or did long press, right? What does that custom delegate or what it will look like? Any custom delegate object you're creating has this model. Object B, step 1, you create some protocol, right? Again, table view has two protocols. What are the protocols? Those are methods. Haha. Table view has two protocols. What are those protocols? Data source and delegate. UI table view data source, UI table view delegate, right? So we need to create our own protocol here for our cell. We'll call it image cell delegate. Image cell delegate is a protocol. What we know about protocols, we know on protocols, anything inside my protocol, curly bracket, I need to implement it if I say I conform. If I say I conform to scene or to some class delegate here, if I conform to some class delegate, I need to implement some function. Everybody sees some function here? Does everybody see some function here? Right? So if I say I'm conforming to some class delegate, I need to implement some function. Do we agree with that? Very good. Moving on, other steps involved in creating a custom delegate is on the class, in our example, the class is what? What class do we want to have this delegate object on? The image cell, right? So the image cell, we need to have some property. We could call it anything you want, by the way. It doesn't have to be delegate, but convention, keep it delegate. I need to have some property called delegate there. The big parts of this is it's a protocol, optional protocol. A table view has the same property. It has a delegate and it has a data source. The data type of delegate is a protocol. It's some optional protocol. Whoever set themselves to this delegate says, I'm in an agreement. I am going to conform to whatever functions you require. If you say table view that delegate or table view that data source equals self, you are obligated to implement the two methods that's required. Same here. If you say view controller or not view controller, if you say cell.delegate equals self, you need to implement some function on that view controller. Okay? That's step 2. Step 3, in our Xcode project, in our image cell, we just created a long press gesture action, correct? We created a gesture action. In that action, this is the action that gets called when I long press, correct? This is the place I want to tell anybody else who's listening, hey, something got long pressed. So here, step 3, in our long press action, we need to say delegate dot whatever function we call that. We need to specify that function name, okay? And the function name could be something as did long press, right? So did long press, we need to say delegate dot did long press. And it's very similar to saying, for example, view controller dot some function. That delegate gets changed with whatever object is listening to it. So if it's our images view controller, substitute delegate with images view controller dot some function. So in our images view controller, it has a some function on it. It needs to have a some function on it. Because right here, you said you are conforming to it, correct? Correct? If you conform to it, you did implement some function. Let's go back to object A. Object A is our view controller. What is required? In object A, we do have a table view, correct? In our object A, in our view controller, when we have a table view, we have let table view or IB outlet table view, correct? We have a table view instance. So this is very similar to the table view instance here, some class. In our viewDid load, what do we say on the table view? We say table view.delegate or table view.data source, correct? Stop me if this does not sound similar to what we've been doing so far. But we've been implementing or we've been using delegates from iOS. Step 6, we said if we conform here, if we conform to some class delegate, we need to implement some function. Right? Some function is here. So we need to implement some function. And at this point, it's up to us to put whatever logic we want to put in some function code. In our example, what do we want to do? We want to present an alert or an action sheet, correct? So that's what we're going to do in step 6. So those are the steps for custom delegation. Again, we'll talk about it again on Thursday. But here we are implementing it, so I want to talk about it, what the steps are. Regardless of what you're building, those are the steps. You have some object B. Object B has a delegate. Anybody who wants to listen to changes on object B needs to conform to object B's delegate. Okay? And it could be object A, it could be object C, X, Y, it doesn't matter. Object B doesn't know who is listening to it. It doesn't care. Okay? It should not care. That's part of like decoupling. Decoupling, breaking up concerns here. Object B is not tied into object A. It could be any view controller, right? It could be images view controller, it could be favorites view controller, doesn't matter. If they're listening to long press changes, they'll get those updates. Any question? Yeah.
2 questions. So the functions that we're talking about here, are they functions that have already been made or are we making?
So in a protocol, you cannot implement the function, right?
No, I mean like in object A.
Object A.
Are we making those because it's a...
In object A, we need to implement some function here because we conform into some class delegate.
But they're methods that are already part of it, like title for role and for like the table.
No, we're creating that from scratch.
Okay.
Custom delegate.
And then 2, where it says
delegate here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's where you want to start notifying. Like when I long press it, for example, I have an action, correct? Right now in our code, we have a long press action. That's where we want to say delegate dot some func.
So we're not going to call specifically on the object. This is anything that has a delegate.
Exactly. So you see, we have an optional there on the delegate. Change that delegate to any view controller that you're using. Right? So that's like a placeholder almost. So that delegate has a reference. So when you set that delegate on when you go to this line here and you say, when you say some class.delegate, you're setting it. You say now the view controller is a delegate. So it's like saying view controller dot some function, which calls this function. Right? Does that make sense? Very good question. This topic, to be the best developer, iOS developer you want to be, custom delegation is the heart of iOS. This is big. As far as like notifying objects of changes, delegation is paramount. There's other ways, there's notification center, there's KVO, right? But delegation, we use it from Unit 2 already. We have table view, we have UI picker view, we have collection view, right? Everything has a delegate, but now we're creating our own. Today we are creating our own. Again, we'll see that again on Thursday, but yes, sir.
So for step 3, do we have to use a specific class name to substitute as delegate, or do we have to, can we use like let's say...
You mean like the word delegate?
Yeah.
You could call it anything.
Okay.
You could call it my awesome delegate, you could call it my notifier.
Is it okay for us to use any of the classes that come built in with Foundation, or no, right?
As far as like naming, it's same as like variable names. Like you want to keep away from keywords.
Oh, okay.
Like delegate is not a keyword, right? Everybody, delegate is not a keyword. It's not part of iOS, right? But it's by convention, we created a custom delegate. It makes sense to call this variable delegate. If you have multiple delegates, you could start naming them differently, like item cell delegate, like the variable name itself. Cool? Very good. Okay, any questions? And then here I have, I'll stack this out later, but here we have the steps that we just went over, okay? So I'll stack it over, and then this is like part of Thursday as well. Any questions before we move on? Yes, sir. I'm gonna stay here. Question?
So I see how we're kind of taking a look at the inner workings of the protocol we've been working with for a while, right?
Yes, exactly. But now we're taking the work of the inner workings because now we're creating our own.
We're going to make our own. So does that also imply that we can add optional methods to it as well?
Yes, but I'm not gonna talk about optional methods right now.
That's fair.
In Objective-C, it was easier somewhat to set it up, but Swift is, we'll get into it, but not right now.
I just want to know if
It's gonna be required. Whatever we have right now is gonna be required. As far as like the protocol is concerned.
to do what we're trying to do.
Yes.
But ultimately, we can.
You could have optionals. Yes, exactly. Very good. So you could have like an extension on your protocol having like optional methods, for example. Or you could have like add optional Objective-C, optional protocols. Yeah. But very good. So it could be very similar to like UI table view delegate, where everything is optional.
Okay. That's good.
Very good. But ours is going to be required. We'll just have one function for now.
That's fair.
Very good. Very good question. Okay, awesome. Let's get back here. Who's gonna start walking me through how do I curate it? What's step one? Step one, protocol. Very good. Okay. I will say step one. Creating custom delegation. Same file. Keep it in the same file, guys. Right at the bottom, right at the top of our class. So we start off with a keyword called protocol. And we called it image cell delegate. Anybody remember? Okay, that's fine. We want it to be any object here because we'll have a delegate week. The delegate week is a reference, a week reference. So we need to explicitly say our protocol only works with class types. So this any object here specifies that any object conformance here, any object requires only classes, right? We have classes and structs, so it only works for reference types. So any object requires image delegate only works with class types. Perfect. Next step, what do we do in here? Well, in here, we'll list required functions. It could also have initializers, by the way. We also have variables. But here we'll have one simple function. Our function, we'll call it did long press did long press. Okay, that's fine. And we said best practices is to keep the object that you selected, or the object you're referring to. In our case here, we're referring to a cell, an image cell. I think that's all we need right now, actually. With a cell, we could actually get the item that was selected. So this is it. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. So this is step one. What's step two? Create a property. Thank you. So step two, here, step one, define protocol. step 2, define optional, I'll say delegate variable here. And it needs to be weak because we cannot have two strong references here. The cell cannot have a strong reference to the view controller, and the view controller cannot at the same time have a strong reference to the cell. Everybody with me with this point? This is why we explicitly mark it as weak. Everybody? This is step 2. Copy paste, you see that? Okay, so here we have wick var delegate, and it needs to be of type image cell delegate optional. Oh, because the cell. So when I say view controller delegate equals self, right? If I do not explicitly say wick here, and I just say var, the view controller will have a strong reference to the cell, and the cell will have a strong reference to the view controller, right? Step 1 was define protocol.
Okay, so then what's
This one is define optional delegate variable. What's step 3? What's the whole point of this delegation thing? What's step 3? Yes, sir. If we do that right now, we're not updating. Like, what's the thing we want to update? What's the object we want to relay back to whoever is listening? What's that? The image cell, yes. So we want to say, when you long press, then you want to say delegate dot whatever you want to do. You want to pass that data or that action. You want to notify the action to the person listening. Everybody? Object B needs to notify whoever is listening via the delegate object. So where we want to do that, any place in your cell where you have some action happening, the user long pressed, you want to relay something back, right? That's where you say delegate dot, in our case, the long press function, right? Very similar back to our notes. Let's go back to the notes here. So in the notes, step 3, whatever function that you are doing that activity in that example, our long press action, this is where we want to tell whoever is listening, hey, somebody long pressed on the cell. So in that long press action, we'll say delegate dot did long press. Everybody with me? Step 3. Okay, awesome. So step 3, let's go here, long press right here. Not here. Action I said, right there, where we have our print statement. So where we have our print statement is step 3.
What's the name of what I'm writing here? Like, what was this line?
This line will be, if you want to get there, this is where we're going right now. This line will be delegate dot did long press, and here we say self.
But this isn't the delegation. Is this like an indicator?
Exactly. That's like where it starts getting a bit like, ugh, what's happening here? So this delegate, right? Change that delegate to like image, what do we call it? Image view controller dot delegate, or image view controller, sorry, did long press. This line on line 53 is very similar to line 54, right? When this action happens, my view controller will call, or my view controller did long press will get called. Everybody, my view controller will have a did long press function. So any place I want to notify my view controller, for example, I want to say delegate here. In other words, I'm calling the view controller. View controller, go ahead and call your did long press function. And in that did long press function, you have access to the cell. Okay? Again, we'll talk about it again on Thursday. But this is what's happening here. The delegate object, if I say, for example, my cell dot whatever it is, actually, yeah, this is fine. If I say my cell, when I set up my controller, for example, I say something like this, cell dot delegate equal to self, right? Let's take this out here. and do this. So in my view controller, my images view controller, I will set my delegate on the cell. In my cell for row, I'll say cell.delegate equal to self. So the minute I say delegate.did long press here, it's calling the did long press function in my images view controller. Everybody? It's explicitly calling that function. So step 3, creating custom delegate, delegation, set or explicitly use delegate object to notify of updates, to notify of any updates. Example, notifying the images view controller when the user long presses on the cell. So this is the one notification we're after. Notify the view controller when the user long pressed on the cell. That's all we want to do. We notify the user, meaning the view controller, hey, we long pressed on the cell, and in that view controller, that function will get activated along with the cell that was the cell that was activated, or the cell that did the activation. We've only gone through the first 3 steps. Any questions about step 1, 2, or 3? Before we go through 4, 5, 6. Yeah?
Tell me to clarify. So the view controller is this is an object that is notified.
Yeah, that object is notified. It broadcasts its changes, right? The changes here is when the user long presses, this action gets activated, right? We confirm that, right? When I long press on the cell, long press activated gets called, correct? Or gets printed. Right? Now we want to tell the view controller, yes, which is the delegate, the long press happened. So now it's up to you to present your alert sheet or whatever you want to present. Okay? Very good. Any other points of clarification? Yes?
Just to make sure, so where we have a weak bar delegate in the cell earlier, that is just like saying, okay, we got delegate yourself.
Sorry, 1 second. Right here, right?
Is that like saying, okay, we got delegate yourself?
Yes, but we haven't gone to that step yet. We only set the property, or we only define the property delegate. But back in the view controller, we'll say cell.delegate equals self. To access delegate, it needs to exist, correct? So now that's where we make it exist. Cool? Very good. All right, step 1, 2, 3 again, going once, going twice. Any more clarifications there?
And then in the view controller, we're going to do it.
4, 5, 6. Yes, yes, exactly. So Luba is excited to go back to the view controller to do what she's familiar with. Right? Right? So very, very good point there. So 1, 2, 3 is new, but 4, 5, 6 we've done before. Right? Very good. I like that, Luba. So let's go to our images view controller and do such. So let's go first to the cell for row. Let's go to cell for row right here. So in cell for row, I want to set cell.delegate equals self. And this is step 4. Step 4, set object, set delegate object. And I will say similar to table view dot delegate equals self. Okay, so we did step 4. Step 5. Yeah, because that's where the delegate is. It's on the cell. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we have an error because we need to conform, correct? Yes? Okay, so let's go back to our little thing here. So step 4, we have that actually because we have an instance of it. The instance is right here. Okay, everybody? Let's keep in mind here, this is actually step 4. Let me fix this. So this is step 4 and this is step 5. So step 4 here is creating custom delegation must have have an instance of, I'll say object B for now. So you need to have an instance of the cell. The thing you want to set the delegate on, you need to have an instance of it. We have an instance of table view. When we created our table views, we have an instance of picker view. Anything you want to set the delegate on, you need to have an instance of it. So this is step 4. Step 5 is this. What's step 5? Oh, step 6, sorry. What's step 6, Luba? Extension. Do you need an extension?
No.
Okay, very good. I just want to clarify that. But yes, we will add an extension. Can we go down? No. What's the question, Luba? You can make an extension. You're right. You can make an extension. We'll put it above the image. We'll make an extension on images view controller because at the end of the day, who's self here? Who's self? View controller. So, can we continue? Okay, we'll take a break right when we finish step 6. Where are we going to do it? We're going to do it right here. Right above our extension on UI image, we'll have step 6. Step 6, conform to image, conform to delegate, fine. And here we'll have an extension on our images, view controller, UI, or image cell, delegate, and it only has one function called did long press. And this guy, great, look at that. We'll confirm it works, and we'll take a break and we'll come back. To confirm it works, we could simply say print cell was selected. And let's take out the print statement. I'll come right back. Let's just take out the print statement in our images cell here. Just take out that long press activated here. And okay. So let's test this and then we'll take a break. So run it. Run, run, run. As fast as you can. What am I running on? Oh, I'm running on the device. So here I have the app. I long press. I see cell was selected, right? So that's confirmation that our views, our cell, delegate is working correctly. I long press and I get cell was selected.
So how come if you need the long press activated?
1 second. What's the question?
How come if you leave the long press activated, how come it doesn't print anymore?
Where are we? Let me see what that looks like offline, Tiffany. But for now, did we get our cell was selected printed?
Yes.
Everybody? Does everybody get this cell was selected printed? Okay, perfect. So we'll take a break and we'll come back at 3:20 sharp. Because we probably have 40 more minutes and then we're done for the day, okay? So come back 3:20 and let's continue on.